My name is Natáyo Weaselhead. My Blackfoot name is Nata, which is one spot woman. As Jim said, I'm a descendant of the Blackfoot and Salish tribes here in Montana. And my ancestors and relatives came from the Kenai territory, which is in southern Canada, and the Pekuni territory in northern Montana. And I wanted to share with you today my own experience in life as one of the stolen children from Indigenous communities, and how colonization has affected me personally and my family. When I was born, I was named Selena Weaselhead, and I was taken out of my native family and community as a 6-month-old infant. And I was adopted into a white family, a white Mormon family. And the first act of assimilation was changing my name from Selena Weaselhead to Julie Geldrich. My adoptive father was a well-respected sheriff in the community, and my adoptive mother was a homemaker. And we led a very normal life. We went to church every Sunday. I grew up on a farm. I grew up on the Flathead Indian Reservation and struggled with being Native and assimilated into white culture. I was one of the very few Native kids who attended a prominently white school. And I was the only Native that I knew at that time who lived with a white family. I wasn't allowed to go to powwows in case I ran into my biological family. I learned how to dance ballet instead of how to dance jingle dance. At church, I was taught that I was a descendant of evil people. And at school, some of the kids would call Indians savages, or they would call me a half-breed. At home, I remember sitting in silence and confusion as I listened to the racism and the conversation around the dinner table. I grew to have a deep sense of shame associated with my self-identity. I only heard terrible things about my Weaselhead family, that they were mean and terrible people, that they were drunks who didn't want me or didn't love me, that they were liars and lazy, thieves, or manipulative. At 8 years old, I was sexually abused, and I went to my parents for protection and for help. And suddenly it was me that they were calling the liar. And over the years, their love for me grew cold and disapproving. I was forced into early marriage after a teenage pregnancy, and I managed to graduate high school before the birth of my son in 2002. I had 2 children, a son and a daughter, before that marriage ended in terrible violence. I escaped with brain injuries and physical disabilities that still challenge my life to this day. I had my 3rd child in 2009. And 3 years later in 2012, just a couple weeks before her 3rd birthday, she died suddenly in my arms from asthma and lung complications. Being separated from my Blackfeet and Salish cultures, I was not prepared with knowing how to care for her spirit at that time. I didn't know the traditions of my people. I took her body to the feet of Yum Chenmo, which was the center statue at the Garden of 1,000 Buddhas in Arley, Montana. And Yum Chenmo is the mother of all sentient beings. And the Buddhist community there helped me to take care of her spirit because they knew how. And that was very remarkable to me. And they held a beautiful ancient ceremony for her spirit to be able to travel safely to the spirit world. And afterwards, I took her body to lay within Mother Earth, which reconnected me to our great Mother Earth. Later into my adulthood, I began seeking spirit and seeking creator and wanting to heal all my wounds, all the grief and the loss that I had suffered in my life. And I began to reconnect with my Native communities by returning to ceremony and going to Sweat Lodge for the first time. I heard stories there of my Weaselhead relatives, and they were filled with humor and honor. And they were much different than the stories that I had grown up hearing. And it was last year that I finally gathered the courage and I walked away from my white adoptive family. And I left behind that life of oppression and cruelty and assimilation and colonization. And my first act of decolonization was taking my Weaselhead name back. And I chose the name Natáyo. It means lynx and Blackfoot. And I started to learn the Blackfoot language. And I started to learn my family history. I received a lot of the documents of my family history, and it was all jumbled up and mixed up. And I spread all these papers on my floor and began to piece them together and put them in order. And for the first time, I was able to speak the names of my ancestors and know how we were connected. And this last summer, I was able to attend my first Sundance, what my Blackfeet people call Okan. And their dancing were beautiful, some of our beautiful sacred societies, the Brave Dogs, which is our warrior society, and the Horn Society, which is who I was invited, who invited me. And I was able to dance for my people in ceremony for the first time. Before I arrived there, I was really, really nervous to go because I had not met anyone there. And so I was not sure what I was walking into. But when I arrived, I was so welcomed in such a loving way. And it was all so new to me, this loving way of life. So I was able to meet my uncle Raymond Many Bears and my auntie Greta and some of my cousins. My uncle Raymond Many Bears, he was one of the 4 oldest elders of the Horn Society. And he was actually the elder who brought our Sundance from Canada into Montana, south of the border. I was able to get my face painted, and my uncle Many Bears gave me my Blackfoot name. During the naming ceremony, I was really nervous because I saw during other people's naming ceremonies, I was watching all of their families stand behind them and support. And I was really nervous thinking that I would be up there alone. And as my uncle called me up, I gathered up all of my gifts that I had brought in for him. And I began to see my relatives come out from the crowd, and they stood behind me. And I had beautiful matriarchs standing right behind me as I received my name, Niteki Stipinyak, one spot woman. It was my first time being home. So much has been stolen because of colonization. And we're coming back now. We're coming back for everything that was taken from our ancestors and from us. And that's where we need to build as we reunite our families and our communities. We need to build these connections and these support systems and opportunities and recovery systems and lift our stolen ones up. Because we are stolen warriors of our people, of our land, of our animal relatives, of our water, of our Mother Earth. We're our stolen warriors. So we need to create a clear path to be brought back to the circle in ceremony. And returning in ceremony is the best way. I remember when I went to Okon and I met one of my aunties, she said, it's good that you returned this way, that you returned in ceremony. And we can do this through community circles where families can reunite in safe ways, addressing issues of addiction and mental health, alcoholism, and sexual abuse, where we can learn the stories of our people and hear our language being spoken by our elders, and where our elders can teach us the language, where we can learn to sing and dance and drum with our family members, where we can gather medicine together, where we can play games together, laugh together, make regalia together, and create these memories and bonds, heal these bonds that have been broken from colonization. So we can return to ceremony and give our stolen people their voices, their names, and their power back.